On the latest episode of Importer Insight, we interview Michael Warren, a visionary and third generation importer who is a phenomenon in the mango world. Stay tuned because you're going to learn so much about the produce industry right now. Hi, Michael. Welcome to Importer Insight. We're so happy to have you here today to discuss Central American produce. Could you start off by telling us a little bit of your family history? I didn't know before this and before doing my research for our show that you are a third generation kind of
Yeah.
importer and have been in this business since you were born, basically. So can you tell us a little bit about your family's history and where you see it going from there?
Hi, Amanda. Well, thanks for having me for one thing.
Absolutely.
And yes, definitely, as far as I go back, and I know it's a third generation because
Yeah.
my grandfather came over from Russia just at the turn of the century, 1800s, that is.
Wow,
And
that's amazing.
yeah, and when he came over, the produce industry seemed to be the way to go for him, actually going door to door
Mm.
selling fruits and vegetables, and from a cart going to a horse-drawn cart, and then eventually he got into the wholesale business in the New England area. So he started in the wholesale business in Providence, Rhode Island, and after so many years, he opened up also a wholesale area in Hartford, Connecticut, and
Mm-hmm.
then later in the years in Boston, Massachusetts, where the Chelsea market currently resides. The produce industry back then, grocery stores didn't have warehouses.
Right.
So the wholesalers that were in business, they were delivering to the grocery stores one store at a time. And, they were intricate.
Mm-hmm.
I can remember when I was a kid, my dad would bring me in and we would be climbing into railroad cars. They'd be full of grapes, they'd be full of citrus, they'd be full of peppers, lettuce. I mean, whatever it was,
Mm-hmm.
and everything was big. Potatoes were in 100-pound bags. Cantaloupes were in 70-pound crates, wooden crates. It was a different industry. And people handle physically these things, unloading the railroad cars. And even when I got older, I remember being in watermelon trucks and loading them off the floor. It was just something I did. When I was 5 years old, my dad used to bring me in on the weekends and he'd have me sort through potatoes and take out the rotten potatoes. So I've been in it all my life.
Yes.
As I got older, when I was 14, I worked for my uncles. They had fruit stands. So it was in our blood. It was in the family from various uncles, cousins of my father's. And I was always involved in produce. So
Mm-hmm.
even when I finished school, produce is where I wanted to be. And I was actually looking at being in retail produce at that time.
Okay.
But
So,
that's it. My father, his two brothers were in the business for some period of time.
yes, yes. Tell me more about that second generation. So, I read that they worked with NGOs to really develop Central America and then bring product into the US. Is that correct?
Yeah. So what happened is one of my father's brothers, he passed away actually in an accident in produce. The other one moved to
Goodness.
Florida and he got into strawberries and a few other things down here. My dad was running the business up in Boston, Massachusetts at that time. The Boston market had closed. They weren't in the Hartford market anymore. And
Mm-hmm.
it was, for one person, it was enough to be in Boston. So he decided to sell the company, thinking that selling to a bigger company was going to be a good thing. And a few months later, he realized after being an entrepreneur for his whole life in produce that working for somebody wasn't a good thing.
Right.
When he was a child, he was always interested in farms and farming. And so he wanted to buy an apple farm, which he never did.
Mm.
But once he sold the business, a friend of his from college reached out to him They were talking about how he sold the business and he was looking for a new opportunity. He was actually going to open up a little produce market in Boston as a drive-through for people from work. And he was working on plans for that when they were building a small little market there, the Faneuil Hall Market that's in Boston.
Okay.
So, and that was innovative. But his friend reached out and said, hey, the U.S. government is looking for somebody to go into some underdeveloped countries and see what opportunities there are in these countries for people to grow crops to export them. So actually the first country they sent him to was Haiti. And Haiti was interesting. I mean, I was in the 11th grade then, so my sisters are all in college or out of the house. My mother, my father, and I, we moved to Haiti,
That's
and I went to school there in the 11th grade, which was a great experience for me, something very different from what I was used to.
I'm sure. Yes, very different. Can
And my father, was trying to see, okay, in Haiti, what is it that I can do
Mhm.
to develop some sort of crops that can be exported? So, going around Haiti, he did see some tomatoes growing there.
Mhm.
He thought, hey, maybe tomatoes would be a good idea.
Yeah.
And he worked with some growers to try and grow some tomatoes. He worked with them to bring them fertilizer, but the fertilizer would just disappear. It was never used. And they grew some tomatoes that probably didn't have enough shelf life to go more than about 100 miles. And he actually made a deal with Guantanamo Naval Base to
Hmm.
buy the tomatoes from these small producers in Haiti. And that was their market.
Nice.
Haiti, it was the first year that it really had independence, and it was a
Mm.
good year for Haiti, but it wasn't really ready to develop an infrastructure to develop products that could be exported in the quality that would be needed for the U.S. So my father, let the government know that he thought this was a little bit too difficult there, and they actually moved him to Central America after that. So in Central America, they based him in Guatemala, and in Guatemala, he saw a lot of potential.
Yes.
So here's a few of the things he did was, he would travel all over Guatemala to see what is growing, what can be done. When he befriended a man who, in his yard in Guatemala, had some snow peas growing, and the snow peas were growing on some vines there. My father, had seen some snow peas and Asian dishes, and and says, what is this? And the guy says, well, I'm growing them here. They're really good, and seems to be a great place to grow them. So my father got interested in that, and he went out to California and he visited some growers there, and they had snow peas, and they were selling for like $3 a pound. And he was thinking to himself, boy, a small grower on just a small piece of land could grow these snow peas and probably make a great living for their
Mhm.
family. So he went back he bought a 50-pound bag seed of snow peas. He went back to Guatemala and he started working with a few small growers. He actually met a woman in line at the commissary in Guatemala, and her husband was fixing tires, and he was always telling people what he's doing and what he's thinking about. She said,
Right.
my husband might be interested in something like that, and introduced her to her husband. And together, with small growers and with this gentleman, they started, you know, growing snow peas. And the first ones they grew, they put in some boxes, they flew them into the U.S., and they started selling at $4 a pound, $5 a pound, $6 a pound here in the United States because California finished their season. There wasn't anything available in the U.S.
Right.
And it just grew into a beautiful, beautiful potential, and more growers got involved, and it became Guatemala was the largest snow pea growing area in the world at one time. And
I did not know that.
eventually the growers got into it. My father even got an award from the president about 15 years later for starting this project
Mm.
with the small farmers. And, it went beyond the small farmers. So, went into snow pea, went to sugar snaps, went to other crops. I'm still popular here in the U.S. But that was a great project.
Sounds
One
like
thing
it.
that happened at the same time, he went down to the desert area and he went to visit a school where some Americans were working with Guatemalan students,
Mhm.
and they were growing some honeydews and some cantaloupes there. And, at this time, this is like 1976. There's no melons in the US in the wintertime. My father thought to himself, hey, this is another,
Another call.
looks like a great opportunity for
Mhm.
people to get involved in growing honeydews and cantaloupes. So he decided, I think rather than work with the government, I'd like to explore this on my own. And he left the USAID program and he got a small group of farmers together and they grew some honeydews. They were using oxen to plow the fields then.
Wow.
And, the warehouse was, sort of makeshift at that time. And
Mhm.
they put the honeydews in boxes. They'd ship them here to the United States. We'd receive them in the Miami terminal market. We had to repack almost everything that came in to take out ones that didn't make it and ones that were still good. And then we started selling them to actually Publix was our first customer here in Florida, and they wanted everything that we could bring in.
That's
So the
amazing.
first year was 8 containers. The second year, he decided to expand out. We did about 100 containers of melons, and then it just kept growing from that point. At
That's
that
amazing.
same time that he had started, there was other growers in Guatemala, Honduras, in Costa Rica. Everybody was like experimenting with melons
Mhm.
at that time. So what he did was he put together a group of people. And it was a plant pathologist, it was an entomologist, and it was a soil scientist for fertilization.
Mhm.
All these guys, had some years on them, like my father. I mean, my father was 60 years old when he started this project. The
Never too
people he
late to
had with
start.
him were all contemporaries at that time.
Okay.
And my father used to call them the three wise men. So he would introduce them to the farmers
Mhm.
and these larger farmers that were trying to do things on a bigger scale and help them all develop the first initial stages of having a winter melon program in the United States. So it was great for us. It was great for a lot of people. We eventually opened up farms in Dominican Republic as well. And now we have, people have melons 52 weeks a year. It's the expectation.
Yes, it is. And you sound like, well, you come from a long line of visionaries. You are huge in the mango business. Can you tell me how that got started?
Sure. Mango business was interesting. I mean, my first mangoes I ate was when we lived in Haiti.
Yes,
And
did you participate in that deal when they were able to ship out mangoes from Haiti for a short
we
while?
were in that deal as well. Yeah. But this time I was 16 years old. So
Talking about a few years ago or,
yeah.
within the last 10 years, but okay. I
So
didn't realize it had started before that.
I love mangoes at 16 and the Haitian
Mhm,
mango is very different. It's all full of fiber and juice and all that. And then when we were working the melon farms in Zacapa in Guatemala,
mhm.
there's mango trees all around there. Most of these countries, the mangoes fall from the trees and they start growing new trees. People, bring mangoes home, they throw the seeds out and trees grow. So, there's all different types of mangoes everywhere you go in these countries.
Yes.
And during the springtime, the Easter time, is when the mangoes usually come.
Mhm.
And so always eating mangoes, always loving the flavor of mangoes. And the US never really saw mangoes here, except for in Florida where we lived,
Right.
there was mangoes every spring and summer. So we're thinking, wow, looks like another opportunity.
Mhm.
So some of the salespeople that have worked for us, one came from a company and he was working with a mango grower in Brazil. And we went to visit him and we brought some of those mangoes in.
Mhm.
And at that time, mangoes were selling for $15, $16 a box. And it, was a very unrefined program at that time.
When was
But it was the
this?
beginning. And, at the same time, mangoes would come in during the season from Mexico.
Right.
This was about 35 years ago.
Okay.
And we really weren't involved with mangoes from Mexico in the beginning. We started in Brazil. We
Mhm.
developed in Brazil. We went to Ecuador. We met some growers in Ecuador and we started bringing mangoes in from there. So Brazil had a season of like August, September, October. Ecuador had a season of October, November, December. And then we met people in Peru. Some of the people in Ecuador were working with people in Peru. So we started bringing mangoes in from Peru, and eventually we went to Guatemala and then also Mexico. Before you knew it, we had a 52-week
Week year.
program
Yes.
of mangoes from all these countries. And, to me, I love mangoes. Mangoes are just delicious. I eat them every day. We give them to my children. I'd see the smiles on their face. Now it's my grandchildren. I see the smiles on their face. And when you introduce mangoes to people, you see the glow. You see how it changes their life and how excited they
Yes.
are.
Yes.
For me, it's kind of like if you start something that you like, you personally like it, you have a passion about it, it's easy to be involved, it's easy to grow it, and it's something you get excited about every day. And mangoes became the passion for me. My father was doing his thing with the melons and all that, but he gave me
Hmm.
some freedom to develop other products in the company. So mangoes was really the thing that excited me most. And today it still is what I concentrate on.
Yeah, it keeps growing and growing, and you have a phenomenal brand. Which countries do you import from?
So currently we're bringing them in from, well, right now they're coming in from Nicaragua,
Mm-hmm.
Guatemala,
Mm-hmm.
Costa Rica, and Mexico. We
Yes.
just finished the Peru season
Yes.
last week.
Okay.
So we'll continue in Mexico to August, September, and then we'll start in Brazil and
Right.
we move to Ecuador. They all overlap a little bit, usually,
Yes.
if everything's right.
If everything's right.
And then we go to Peru and then we start again with Mexico and Central America.
So which mango variety is your favorite?
Of commercial varieties, the Kent currently is my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
But being in Florida, I'm exposed to probably hundreds of varieties.
Right.
What's interesting is like in 1922, Tommy Atkins was developed here in Florida by a guy named Thomas Atkins. And they think it came from a Hayden
Mm-hmm.
and what they call a local variety, which was called a Brook.
Okay.
And they feel that Tommy Atkins came from that. It was very disease resistant. It's
Mm-hmm.
a great producer, had a good color, had some fiber in it, but it became popular. And in about the 50s, it became more popular here in Florida. And then they started sending cultivars to other places
Mm-hmm.
in Central America and South America and Mexico. And so the Tommy Atkins was being planted in all these countries. And
Right.
it's still probably the most prevalent mango coming into the US. In 1938, somebody by the name of Lee Kent in Florida also, because Florida just had all kinds of mangoes,
Mm-hmm.
named the mango Kent mango. This mango had a lot less fiber. It was probably again crossed between a brook and some other type of mango.
Right.
It's like when a mango falls from a tree and you plant that seed, you don't necessarily get the same mango that was on that tree. The
Mm-hmm.
seed has certain genetic aspects to it. And so many of the varieties that we see today were made from some type of cross pollination from trees being close to each other.
Yes.
Uh, just happens that somebody planted a seed from another tree and they find a mango they like. So what they do when they find a mango they like is you can't just go planting seeds. They start taking they start grafting. They take budwood from the tree
Mm-hmm.
and usually they take a strong root system. In Florida, they use what they call the turpentine mango. It's one that you couldn't grow and eat because it wouldn't taste good, but the
Oh,
root system's super strong.
okay.
And they would graft these budwood to those trees, and then they'd have a nice resistant root system, and they would grow the variety that they're trying to grow. So this way you can keep grafting and growing and expanding. And it's the same way they do it in Central and South America today. They find a root stock that's really strong for those countries,
Mm-hmm.
and then they'll use the budwood and varieties to grow them. So Kent, you asked what my favorite is. Kent's really my favorite,
Okay.
but it's not available all the time.
Right.
it takes special conditions. Kent needs more cold weather, needs, certain characteristics that's going to make it bloom and then grow. And, in the Kent, you get one mango on a stem in a tree, where like a Tommy, you'll get two or three.
Uh,
So Kents are really special. And when they're available, that's my favorite mango. I mean, right now I go into a store and I see the last of the Peruvian mangoes,
yes.
buying the Kents off the shelf to take home and make them last as long as possible.
Yeah. Nothing beats the end of the season mango. That's for sure.
Yeah.
That is
When
for
when
sure.
in Florida, by
My
the end of
favorite,
the Florida season, you'll always find that I have a freezer full of mango from all the ones I've collected here in Florida that, are ready to eat, and I just cut them, cheek them, and freeze them. I still have a little bit when the next crop starts.
oh,
So
nice.
they carry me over.
Nice, nice. My favorite's a Hayden.
The Haydens are really good.
Yes. It's always, I don't know, it's just something about it, especially like the end of season Haydens out of Mexico are just phenomenal.
I like the Haydens too. And, there's not, you don't see them that often
Right.
in availability.
Yes, yes. They've dwindled quite a bit, but there's always people looking. And you see Tommy Atkins kind of falling off too as far as favorability. I don't know if you see that. That's been my experience in the past. What do you think about that? Do you think that'll continue?
I think it continues. I believe that Tommies are underrated
Mm,
and not understood variety.
right.
In countries where they grow the Tommies, especially, like let's say Ecuador, and it's
Hmm.
funny because the growers in Ecuador, most of them will say they like Tommies better than anything. And of course, that's what grows the easiest in Ecuador because with the warmer climates, it's easier to flower and get mangoes.
Hmm.
And I think a Tommy can't get really ripe like a Hayden or like a Kent
Hmm.
or even like a Keat
Right.
and be eaten because when it gets too ripe, I think it loses a certain amount of flavor. The fibers, get a little bit too much.
Hmm.
But if you get it in an in between stage when it's still just like a firm ripe and cut it, the fibers cut very easily and the color of it's beautiful and it has a great flavor.
Yes.
So it's kind of like understanding the mango and eating it when it's correct. In some cultures they use green mangoes that are white inside to cook with, just to absorb the flavors of the spices.
Yeah.
And in other countries they want like an immature mango that's really crispy and even very citrusy, a little bit sour, and they'll
Hmm.
put tahini on it. And for them that's a delicacy.
Yes.
So, depending on the country and the people, even within a country, some people like sweet, ripe, juicy mangoes.
Hmm.
Other people like them hard, crispy, and makes them pucker. So yeah, there's mangoes for everybody, and I
That's
think
right.
Tommy is underrated. It's still a great mango,
Yes.
but again, Kent's my favorite.
Good. Good to know. Good to know. I'd like to ask you about the Mexican season. We just started. I've heard it's been a little complicated of a start. Is that true? Are the rumors true or how is it going so far?
The Mexican season is always a complicated start.
Always.
Yeah, I mean, if it wasn't for our love of mangoes, we tried to avoid it as long as possible. So, Mexico, the people love mangoes.
Hmm.
And when the mango season starts in Mexico, everybody in Mexico wants to eat the mangoes that are available.
Absolutely.
So, everything is supply and demand.
Absolutely.
And the demand is fantastic in Mexico. In fact, one of my mates here at the office was in Cancun this past week with his family. He
Hmm.
says all he saw were yellow Ataulfo honey mangoes in Mexico, where he was, all over the streets. He didn't see a red mango there, but he saw the yellow ones everywhere. And the yellow ones are in big demand. The red ones are also in big demand. It seems like that's the case until about Easter time.
Hmm.
So for us in the US, we also need mangoes at that time. It's the end of Peru, it's the beginning of Central
Right.
America. And every year is different. So this year we all look for mangoes, but It's mostly small growers that are not in the marketing business, that aren't vertically integrated, and not the importer that bring the mangoes in. There are some, and the mangoes are grown from a lot of small growers there. So when I was in Oaxaca years ago, at about 5 o'clock in the morning, first you hear the roosters crow. And then right after there, over the loudspeaker, you start hearing them shouting the name of a company and how much they paid for mangoes just now. And then you'd hear the next lot of mangoes come in and they'd be shouting, okay, this lot just sold to so and so, and they just paid, 500 pesos for this, these mangoes. And it would just go on all morning. Those are the mangoes that come to the US as well as to the market in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't always line up with what the customers are willing to pay in the US.
Right.
And
Right.
we as marketers, we try to put our thinking cap on. We try to estimate what's going to come in, what's going to be available, what the price is going to be. And we go out, because people need to plan ahead. And
Yes.
we go out and try and plan ahead with our customers to have fruit for them. But many times the price we're paying for mangoes and bringing them in for and the price we're selling them for does not line up.
Yes.
And we go by information that we're given from all these countries. So this particular year, Peru's supposed to be very short on mangoes. Mexico was supposed to have a pretty good supply of mangoes.
Mm-hmm.
And Central America was having a little bit of a late start. But instead, there was more mangoes than what was expected from everybody. And they all came in at the same time. We weren't prepared. We didn't go out to the retailers ahead of time and said, hey, let's promote these mangoes. We didn't go out to all the outlets we had to have promotions in place. And before we know it, where we had thought mangoes were going to be short and high price, there are mangoes available everywhere. And we had a lot of cost in those mangoes.
Yes.
And the market wasn't ready for it. So, it happens every year for some period of time, and we're used to it. We work with it.
Right.
But it does get mangoes out into the system, and it does get people eating mangoes.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever happens, it kicks off the Mexican mango season, and we're just ready to rock and roll.
Ready to roll. Are you also marketing ataulfos?
We market some ataulfos. It's not our strong point with the
Mm-hmm.
ataulfos. Some people seem to specialize in them, but our customers like ataulfos. So we carry them for the customers who like them. I mean, I love ataulfos.
I do too.
A lot of our business is in the Midwest and the East Coast. East Coast, they used a lot more ataulfos in the past than
Right.
they use currently. Retailers use them, but some of the mangoes from the Caribbeans and from the islands, like the
Mm-hmm.
Pagolos and other ones, they also turn a yellow.
Mm-hmm.
It seems that the populations, the cultures are preferring
Those.
those other varieties over the Ataulfos. So it really just depends where we are, but we do sell Ataulfos and we do carry them, but we don't concentrate on them. We just do it for the customers that we know want them.
Need them. What other items do you offer?
Other items we offer are limes. We do, and then we work a little bit with pineapples. We work a little bit. We're like a niche marketer with some melons still because
Mm-hmm.
we still have customers that want melons. They prefer to buy them from us. But really, our concentration, 95% of what we do today is mango.
Amazing.
Yeah, we're looking at some other items to develop in the future. But mangoes is still it has a long way to develop into the
Yes.
market. There's so many things that we want to do with mango that it's just a strong concentration for us, and that's where we put most of our efforts.
That's nice. Yeah. So limes you bring from what countries?
Actually, most of the limes we bring come from either Colombia, Honduras, or Peru. We don't do that much out of Mexico. Again, on the East Coast in the last few years, people have looked, and a good amount of our business is East Coast based.
Mm-hmm.
We do take care of the whole country in Canada, but we're a very strong base here in the East. And many of the customers that we use for limes are located in the East, and they're starting to prefer the consistency of limes from these offshore countries
Mm-hmm.
because the Mexican market's very volatile, and
Yes, it
it's
can
hard to
be.
predict. It
Yes.
seems as though we can work with them with a little more consistency in the offshore ones.
Yeah, you definitely have the opportunity to plan ahead with the offshore programs. Mexico is complicated at times, like right now.
Yes,
It's
right now
very
it seems
complicated.
very complicated.
Yes. Yeah,
Um,
none of us anticipated that it would be so short on product as it is
yeah.
right now. Food safety is so important in our industry. And how do you manage your partnerships with your growers, managing traceability and making sure that they are sustainable with the costs because there is an added cost to making sure that everything meets the requirements and standards to import into the US. How do you help your growers and can you tell us a little bit in more detail or more depth about what you do?
Okay. Well, for the most part, the growers are fairly sophisticated and the
Mhm.
people will have their own large grows for sure. Small growers, they don't have the same sophistication.
Right.
But there are new FSMA rules coming up,
Yes.
and it is going to get more complicated in the future. So, it's at first people didn't really think of food safety
No.
in produce. If you go back 25 years ago, people weren't really that concerned with food safety.
Right.
And we actually started our own food safety program. We worked with Primus Labs at that time,
Mhm.
and we developed what we call it AgriSafe at the time. And
Mhm.
we would work with growers to develop systems where they would have accountability and they would have systems in place and processes for food safety, and we would certify them for it. Everybody became interested in food safety,
Mhm.
and we left it to the big companies to go out and market their food safety, and it was really the retailers who were demanding these things.
Yes.
That the people adapted to it. Premise was a big influence in the beginning, and it's just a matter of, checking in the fields for audits with the harvesting crews and what's being done in the fields, in the packing house, how things are being handled. Mangoes are pretty simple, fortunately, but
Yes.
but they still have to go through all the processes to be sure that it's being done right. And you know, we we figured it out. The growers have figured it out. The small growers are more collective. There's people who work with small growers that they take it upon themselves to
Mhm.
work that part out, and it seems to be under control at the moment. The next
Good.
thing that happened was social responsibility.
Yes.
They all go together because it's something that the retailers and people were, concerned about
Mhm.
workers and laborers being treated correctly.
Mhm.
Now, social responsibility is also a part of the exportation of mangoes, the collection, and all those things. All of these raise the bar. So they have the food safety and they're doing things correctly. They have the social responsibility where they're making sure the workers' families
Mhm.
are all being protected or all going according to the government regulations. And it used to be that the workers would be working short periods of time, like the mango seasons in most countries are 2.5 months.
Right.
These workers want to come in, they want to work from morning till as late at night as possible because in some areas there's not another job for them
Right.
for months.
Mhm.
And we always tried to support that. Now with the social responsibility, we have to be a little more, well, we have to do things differently and we have the shifts working. There's more agriculture coming out of some of these countries now that wasn't there before.
Mhm.
So actually there's more competition for labor today.
Yes. Yes, definitely a lot more Competition.
And so in that case, well, the shippers are having to bring labor from other areas to come in. And again, they work with them in shifts. So the costs keep getting higher.
Hmm.
And so we have the food safety, we have the social responsibility, and it's something that the retailers are asking for. We make sure that they have it according to their standards, and then it's all working.
Do you feel that the added regulations extend the season? Because,
I don't think they extend the season at all.
okay,
I think it's just that it helps give a control. It helps make sure that the workers it's no different than the US. The labor's changing.
right.
And how people look at their daily jobs changing.
Yes, so much so.
Yeah. So, many of our shippers, they're working with schools for the children of the laborers.
Hmm.
They're doing things that even go beyond what's necessary, but they're doing it because the people are important. And if they want
Hmm.
to have people working for them, they need to provide them with more. They have doctors that come in to look at them, at their families. They have schools, they even are teaching them computers. I don't know if they're going to have labor in the fields because some of the children of the laborers are looking for other opportunities besides being field workers
Right.
because, now they have resources where they're learning new skills.
Yes, yes.
But for now, labor continues to be something that's short in areas. People are starting to look at new technology.
Hmm.
So, they have new types of sizers and selection in the packing house for machines that do a lot of the work that people did.
Hmm.
In some of the packing houses we work, there's more robotics that are actually putting mangoes away into the warehouse and pulling them out.
Really?
And some of the countries, people have that in their packing houses. And as time goes on, we'll see more of that as well.
Hmm.
It's like people used to hand fold boxes and ship mangoes in hand fold boxes. Took a
Right.
lot more labor.
Yes.
Now they all use box machines and they kick them out and glue them one after the other. So they get to use less labor, and it helps them as labor's becoming shorter in the area. So, we
Right.
went to having more labor than what people could use and people really needing to work to make a living.
Hmm.
So now there's more opportunities for labor and labor's actually short and things just develop
Yes.
according to what the needs are.
Yes, absolutely. It's definitely changed quite a bit. I'm sure you've seen it change tremendously over the last few years. How long would you consider you've participated in this industry?
For me, it's 48 years this year. Our company in November of 2026 will be celebrating its 50th year.
Congratulations.
Yeah, and I'll be hitting my ninth year. I wasn't here for the first year. I was finishing school and looking for opportunities outside because I never knew that we were going to have an opportunity here to do what we do today.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's exciting. We're planning the next 50 years now.
Amazing. Yes. Can you give us any insight into what the future holds for the next decade for your company? Capco is what it's called, known as.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We went by, originally we were Central American produce because we were
Mhm.
based in Guatemala.
Mhm.
Most of our business was in Central America.
Mhm.
We moved to South America. We moved to Mexico, and it was like Central American produce. So we became Capco Farms
Okay.
because it was a more generic name. It was a
Yes.
good brand,
Yes.
and
Definitely.
and it worked for us in the industry. So we still kept our origin, our beginnings,
Mhm.
but it was more present focused.
Yes.
And what we're doing in the future is we do have other products in mind for the future, which we know we'll see as we go along. But as far as mangoes go, I mean, mangoes have been around for 4,000 years. And in most countries, mangoes are the most popular, countries like India, Southeast Asia, mangoes are known as the king of fruits. They're the most
Yes.
popular fruit in those countries. Here in the US, it's pretty much still in its infancy.
Mm-hmm.
Mangoes, yeah, they have been here in Florida for 100 years, but they've only become popular like in the last 15 or 20 years.
Right.
And the popularity is growing, as it is in all parts of the world now. For me, there's so much more to do in mangoes that we'll be concentrating in mangoes for sure. It went from a niche item on a shelf where they might put a few mangoes out or a box or so to now they have large displays, sometimes multiple displays of multiple varieties at one time.
Mm-hmm.
And there's still more to come. There's new varieties being developed. They're looking at both genetics on those new varieties, trying to find the characteristics that make mango popular in people's homes
Mm-hmm.
to create new mangoes. And there's just the pollination factor of just taking two mango trees and sharing the pollination and coming up with new varieties. There's new varieties developed all the time. They're trying to find the ones that have the eye appeal for the consumer, that have the resistance to grow it and to
Mm-hmm.
grow in good volumes, and that have that beautiful color inside as well and a great flavor. So, it takes decades to develop a new variety and new varieties. So we're going to see that. Future consumers are going to see it. And so we're just trying to work with our producers to develop processes so they can harvest them at the right time, to be more consistent in the harvesting, to bring them in the best condition. So people have that experience that's going to say, hey, I want another mango. We want to go back and buy more mangoes. To go to the store, we want to buy 2 or 3 mangoes. To me, I think it's going to come time, and we see it at the big box stores, but I think you're going to see it in retailers where they're
Mm-hmm.
selling mangoes by the box and people are bringing them home
Yeah,
more and
let's hope
more
so.
because they're going to become so popular, kind of like the mandarins have become.
Right, 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 right. I think so. I think so too.
So we're definitely focused on making sure that we continue bringing in flavorful mangoes, mangoes that the consumer knows is good, the education to the consumer. It's a slow process. Now it's a digital type of thing and all that, but slowly but surely it's the next generation. It's again seeing that joy when that young child has its first bite of mango and they go to the stores, they're in the shopping cart with their parents saying, hey, we want the mango.
Yes.
You know?
I I have a very special video of my daughter who is 8 now, but she's running around the kitchen table and I had just served her some mango and she's saying, "Mango, mango, mango." She must have been 2 years old. She loves it and it's a very much loved fruit and I'm very much looking forward to seeing what variety you come out with next and where that all leads to. You've been in this industry 48 years, basically your entire life. You've lived it. You've lived the life, the produce life. What would be your best advice for people coming into the industry and for the future generations as we move forward?
To generations. One is people need to eat. So really healthy eating, fresh fruits and vegetables, you
Hmm.
can't do anything better than that
Hmm.
at the moment.
Right.
People are busy as well, but everybody enjoys eating and looking for new experience and new flavors. So I think the produce industry, it's been a hard business to work in for
Hmm.
years, and it's having to change because of the way people are today, where people want a more of a balanced life. So we're going to see that happening. I think that there was a period of time where young people weren't that attracted to produce
Right.
because they see, I mean, I used to work, you know, 12, 14, 16-hour days. It was normal. Farmers, it's normal. And it
Hmm.
still can be long, but the new generations of, we're having to figure out how to make it work so there's balance in life as well.
Hmm.
But fresh produce that connects us to the earth, it grounds us. It's always going to be like that. So the new consumers are going to be a young generation. The future of the industry is to take advantage of seasoned professionals that have been in the industry, but use the new creative ideas of the future generations. And the young people who are coming in, they think different. They're going to do things different, but it's going to work because it's what they want out of their lives. For their children, as they bring them up, they're going to want it. So I see that if they come into this, they're gonna need to have passion for sure. Um, you need to have persistence in this business
Yes, very
because
true.
it's a business where we get knocked down and we have to get back up again. And you just don't need to get discouraged because we're always affected by supply, demand, by weather, one thing or another. But persistence is super important, and they need the creativity of what's relevant today. So we see, fresh cut that's growing. We see health is becoming a more important thing.
Hmm.
Mangoes, people like mangoes because they taste good. They're delicious. They get joy out of eating mangoes, but now we're seeing how, there's heart health involved with mangoes. There's gut health involved with mangoes. There's actually with the carotenoids and the magnifica, there's brain health that's in mangoes. So there's all kinds of new research
Hmm.
that's pointing to mangoes and all kinds of fruits and vegetables. Science is looking at what are the benefits to eating these things. And still, they can take health benefits and you can put them in juices, you can put them in powders, but you're never going to beat what comes out of a fresh piece of fruit and produce. So there's always going to be a demand for that. And I just think it's exciting to see how we're going to evolve, where it's going to take us in the future. And it's always going to take a team.
Yes.
So when people come into the business, they need to come in and feel like they're in a team and a team that's going to work together and move ahead. I think
Mm.
that's very important in this. Uh,
Absolutely. I heard recently from someone I work closely with that the produce industry keeps you humble.
I would say that it could go either way, but
Yes.
I'm a very humble and appreciative person for everything produce has done for myself and my family.
Yes.
And I just think that there's nothing like feeding people and contributing to their health and the happiness of having great experiences of what they eat.
Absolutely. I have so much enjoyed talking with you today. I've known you for many years, but we've never really had a chance to discuss who you are, and I've learned so much, and I'm so grateful for the time that you have given me today, Michael. Thank you so much, and wishing you and your company and your team so much success in the future, and a very successful Mexican mango season and beyond and into the rest of the year. And I hope to be able to celebrate your 50th company anniversary with you, hopefully.
Thank you. Well, you definitely will. It's been great knowing you. Fortunately, I had the pleasure of meeting your father
Yes.
and then meeting both you and your sister. And it's nice. Nothing better than seeing the next generation coming into produce. So
Yeah.
you're an example of what we all have to look forward to. So
Oh,
thank
thank
you
you
as
so
well.
much. That's truly a compliment coming from you. So, thank you again, and stay tuned because there's more to come on Importer Insight. If you'd like to know about Michael and his company, we're going to leave that link in the description. Can you tell us what your website is so that people can reach out to you if they'd like to?
The website is capcofarms.com.
Awesome.
And yeah, it's there. But give us a call and say hello. It's even better.
Absolutely. Calls always make a difference. Well,
Yes.
thank you, Michael, and take care.
All right, Amanda. Thank you. You be well.
Thanks again for tuning in to this latest episode of Importer Insight. Please leave in the comments what you learned from this episode because there was a lot there. If you'd like to learn more about Capco Farms, check the link in the description. Like, subscribe, comment, tell me what your favorite part about this episode was. I'd love to know. And let me know what commodity you're interested in learning about next. Stay tuned because there's more to come. Take care.